Hi, it's Jnwynn with Scraptastic Yarns Podcast. I want to welcome all of my new subscribers and say thank you to those who have stuck with me for this long. Today, I believe, is episode 36. I have a few finished objects. One of those is my raglan sweater. And I didn't want it to be a long sweater. It's just supposed to be something to help keep me warm. I did a little shell around the opening. And like I said, it goes to about my waist. And this was done with the pimento yarn from Knit Crate. I did order a couple of skeins extra. You know, I'm a big girl, so I had to have those skeins so I could finish it. And the Halloween blanket is finished. I've nicknamed this the Halloween blanket. Pastor Susan had called this yarn the Halloween yarn, but I paired it up with some brown that I had and just made a granny lapgan. And of course that will go to prayer shawl. The only other thing that I have finished, well, I did finish, and I will post a picture at the very end, another 25 baby hats that I did take up to the hospital. And the picture that's at the very end is all of our donations for this past month with the fire hall, and also some of the ladies over at the Lock Haven Community Center provided some of those hats as well. So we had 115 hats, I believe, total that we turned in. So it's a pretty good amount considering most of my crocheters have gone, you know, they're snowbirds. Can't say I blame them. This weekend we're supposed to be getting Snowmageddon, supposedly up to 2 feet of snow. I don't mind when it's a couple of inches, but you know, that 2 feet of snow, that kind of keeps you in the house a little while. Yeah. I did finish a hat, and this hat is for me. It is done with the Red Heart Black Fleck. And this is basically just one of Ross's hats. I did do it a little bit longer than what he does. I don't like mine as snug. And I did add a couple of stitches on the ribbing just because I don't like mine that snug. So, yeah, this one is finished. And the other thing, a couple more baby hats. Next month is Heart Association Heart Defect Awareness. So I have started on the red hats. And we do that anyway because of Valentine's Day. But this is like a twofer because it also, the nurses are also able to do double checks and teach the parents about signs and symptoms of heart defects. Not always do you see those right up front. Sometimes those heart murmurs take a couple of days to be able to recognize them after a baby is born. Generally, about a week afterwards, you'll be able to hear that heart defect really well. Sometimes when they're first born, you don't catch it, just because the baby is acclimating to a new environment, and there's a lot going on with newborns when they're first born. So many times you don't catch that. Usually the preemie babies, you're able to catch those pretty quick because there are a lot of tests that are just done normally on preemie babies to begin with. Newborn babies, you do a newborn check in the morning. You may check them throughout the day, but nowadays newborns are primarily kept with the new mother in the room. So you only have an opportunity to take that baby out once every 24-hour period to check on the baby and run some tests and do some normal things. So this is a good teaching tool, reminds nurses to do those kind of teaching things. This one is just basically, they're the same hat. We use Baka's simple double crochet hat, and this one just has around the edge for that 9th row instead of a double crochet row. We actually, I just put a shell stitch, which is 5 half double crochets in one stitch, skip a stitch, single crochet, and then 5 in the next, and that's pretty simple, easy to do. This is one that can go for a boy or a girl, although you'd be surprised how many parents pick this one for boys. Whatever. And I like to do a lot of these hats with mostly red. I do add a little bit of white. Lots of times when I'm running out of red yarn, I will actually do it mostly in white and crochet a red heart to sew onto the hat. That is just something we do for the month of February. And Jada and Stitches has a great heart applique, and that's basically what I use to make hearts. Okay, I was not going to buy any yarn. Honestly, I was not going to buy any yarn. However, one of the nurses was going downstairs. She was going to go get her lunch when I delivered these. She handed me $15 and she said, "I know folks don't give you a whole lot of money for donations." Went to AC Moore. And they had their large, these are 14 ounces, I believe. Yep, 14.1 ounces. They had their large Stitch Studios on sale for $5. And I had originally gone looking for 3 colors because February needed red. That's this red. And also because we're in the State College area. Like to do the navy for Penn State. A lot of people fans of Penn State around here. And don't tell Penn State we're making blue and white hats. I tell you, their lawyers are bad. And I will say this: the Nittany Lion paw print is something that Joe Pa owned the trademark. So any of the local bakeries, including Walmart's bakeries, Wegmans, Giant, anytime they do anything with that paw print, they have to purchase each year from the family the rights to make cupcakes in that Nittany paw. And that, last time I heard, was $10,000 a year that they pay the family. It's their enterprise, so they purchase it. And I think I've told you this story before. I had a friend who'd asked me to make a sweater for her nephew's child who was born and had some heart defects. Was probably not going to be very big for a while. So she'd asked, they were big fans of Penn State because he had gone to Penn State. So she'd asked me if I could make a Penn State sweater for the newborn. I did make it. It was white with some blue trim and some blue in it. And on the front of it, I had done using the duplicate stitch. I had put out PSU. So we're in the gift shop, and she's like, let me buy you something. Let me give you something. I want to give you some money for that. And I told her, no, you're not going to do that. And there happened to be a lawyer there who was a past lawyer for Penn State. And at that point, he'd asked about the sweater. She told him about the sweater. And he said, well, if I was working today with Penn State, I would have to sue you for our cut of making that. And I looked at him and I said, first of all, you don't own the letters P, S, U. So, you wouldn't get a cut from that. I'd argue from here till the end of days about that. You don't own the colors navy blue and white. So you really need to get over yourself. I didn't charge her anything for it. It cost me this much in materials, so I believe that Penn State should front me the money. And we had a good laugh about it, but he was telling me that, yeah, a lot of universities are pretty sticklers about their logos and their colors, and they will sue people who are just trying to make a buck. I know when my husband was attending Virginia Tech getting his PhD, there was a lady that used to make quillos. A quillo is a quilt that you can fold into itself and put into a case that makes a pillow. And she made these. They just had the letters VT on them, or hokey. So Virginia Tech sued her to cease and desist. Then this was how she made her living. Well, when it got down to the courts determined that Virginia Tech at that time did not own the rights to the name Virginia Tech, because Virginia Tech, on all their PhDs, diplomas, all those things, they are listed as Virginia Polytechnical Institute. That is their legal name. That was the name they started out with. Since then, they have trademarked Virginia Tech and hokey, and at the time they didn't have hokey trademarked, but this lady was allowed to continue until she passed away. So, as makers, we kind of have to be careful about what we're making. Luckily, the quilt that I made, because I used basic colors and I used an embroidery program that had already been pre-approved by Auburn University. I didn't get tagged for having to give a cut. Sometimes I think universities are kind of ridiculous with some of the things. But anyway, got the navy. I had originally wanted to get white. They did not have a large one of the white, so I opted to get three smaller whites with that. And of course I had a coupon, and so I wound up having to spend the whole 20 cents of my own money. But it was well worth it. One of the other acquisitions that I got, let me put that back in there. Kendra of Hooked by Happenstance. She has these hot and fresh deals. And this was one of those hot and fresh deals that she had. I saw this and I loved it. When some of the camper fabric first came out, I missed getting some of it, and I really wished I had gotten some to make a project bag. But this really was a twofer because you know, got to get something that's made by Kendra. Yay. And also, I got my fabric. And I didn't have to make the bag myself, so that was a bonus. I hope that you folks have been watching a lot of the 10 non-yarning things about me that have been going around. And I have to say, a couple of things that made me laugh were when Karen of Homemade Happiness is Homemade. I don't know why I got stuck on that one. She had made a comment about her death stare, and it got me laughing because my mother, when I was younger, when I got mad and I gave them the look, you know, mothers, we have a look we give our kids, and they know, stop. But my mother teased me. She said, you know, you've got that look down good. She said, let me tell you, if looks could kill, you'd be a mass murderer. So I have always laughed about the death stare, the look, because, you know, it always reminds me of my mom with that. So, yeah. I did want to give you an update on my taking stock of my stash. So far, I have 16 labeled totes, and these are large totes. And I have probably another 8 to go through, although I believe there are 10, not just 8. But I'm thinking that a couple of those have some past projects that I had worked on, and also some crochet thread. I don't do a lot of doilies anymore, so I'm thinking that that's something I should take up to Scraps and Skeins, so that someone who uses it to make doilies or tat or whatever can do that. I do enjoy tatting, although the smallest yarn, smallest thread that I use to tat is a size 10. I choose to use the size 5, size 3 because of the eyes. When you get older, you get a little more trouble with your eyes. Although I've had cataract surgery and vision is fine, with the exception of the floater over here in this eye that still kind of annoys me. But yeah, I just can't use that smaller thread. I have a lot of size 20, size 30 thread that I used to use to make doilies and coasters and on top of shirts and things like that. So that's going to go away. But that's where I'm at right now. I have started working. You know, I'm continuing to work on the hats. I have started working on that Tunisian honeymead shawl. I do a couple of rows a day and then put it away. It is hard on the eyes because it's, you know, a size 3 lightweight. It's Karen's size 3, Karen Light, that I'm using to make that. And it's a little harder to see, so I do a couple of rows, put it away, and then move on to something else. The only other thing I have going right now is I had started to knit a shawl with that Hellspun. This is the only thing that I don't mind knitting, crocheting. I would prefer to knit with the Hellspun, and I just do a grandmother's dishcloth for the shawl. And I'm just doing that to use up that stash. I will probably enter this in Hannah's Love Your Stash, although I have done quite a few things using Stash, so we'll see where that goes. The only other thing I did want to say is I had someone comment on my Facebook group page that she had gotten discouraged. She'd been posting pictures not only in my group but other groups, and there were some pretty negative Nancy's comments, I guess, made in some of these other groups or towards her about those. I don't tolerate that in my group because of this one thing. It doesn't matter whether you are a beginner or experienced. We all started somewhere. There are various reasons that people choose to crochet or knit, and we should be cheerleaders for each other for that, because it's a skill. Yeah, it's a skill we can use when the apocalypse happens. Some of us who have lots of yarn will be well taken care of during the apocalypse because we'll be able to make things for others. But I'm not sure why people think they have to be so negative towards one another. I mean, it's not like you know this person personally. Why would you say something like that? So, I just want to remind everybody, be kind in what you do. We all have our struggles. We all have issues that keep us from doing things. I hope you notice I've been doing my hands like this all day. Today, my arthritis is bothering me. So that will cut down on the amount of crocheting, knitting that I might do. So I consider it a win when I get anything done. I crochet loosely. I had some ladies that turned in some baby hats that used a size J hook, and the hats are smaller than mine. That's perfectly fine. These hats are still large enough to fit some of the smaller babies. The hats are fine because in a hospital situation that doesn't normally take care of newborns in a NICU that are preemies, one of our main things that we always used to say was, because many times when these deliveries happen, they're quick deliveries, or because of a health issue. So we deliver, we stabilize, and ship. So those little hats will be able to go shipped with the baby to help keep that baby warm, because babies lose a lot of heat through their heads and their toes. So hats are fantastic to help keep babies warm. But anyway, let's stop being so negative when we see something that we look at and we're like, oh, those are ugly colors. Somebody loves those colors. You know? You don't need to be negative. You can just say, well done, nicely done. If not, move on. Don't be so mean to people. That just irritates me. And mainly because I had worked on something a few years ago. It was called, in the paper, I believe they called it Squares of Love. Family member had brought me 16 boxes of crocheted granny squares, all different sizes, all different colors. Asked me to put together those squares into Afghans, and I did. I made a total of, I believe it was 14 Afghans. Some of those squares I was able to work them in, put them together, but there were a lot of mistakes in those. And some of those in some of the boxes, as I was working, and we would have to take apart some of them and refinish some of those, I told myself the entire time, I hope this woman had Alzheimer's that was working on these. Because the mistakes, you could see from box to box the graduation of losing those skills, to where the last box we had to do a lot of work on to be able to make them into Afghans. But we tried to leave them the way they were and put them together, but some of them we just couldn't. And when I talked with the family member, because they got to choose several of the Afghans to keep for themselves, this was the person's mother who had done these, and yes, she had Alzheimer's at the very end. So she was very grateful that I was able to turn these granny squares into something usable for other people, and also give them a memory. And she chose the blankets that had several mistakes in them, that we just kind of worked them in so that it straightened them out. And but yeah, I never said a negative thing to the woman. The only thing I said to her was, while I was working on them, I kept praying that I hope this woman had Alzheimer's as we were going, because I could see the progression of the loss of skill in the memory. And I said, as I was working on them, I would say a little prayer, that the woman hoped wherever she was being blessed. So there's no reason to be unkind to others when they post in a group. Let's stop being such negative Nancys. And if your name is Nancy, I'm sorry I used your name. Okay, I'm gone. Rant for the week. Everybody have a great week. I'll see you again next week, I believe. I'm hoping to get Tunisian Tuesday up. I have to film it. And if we do have Snowmageddon, I'll definitely have time to film it. Alright, see you again soon. Bye.